Welcome to Electric Bike Report. My name's John.
And I'm Griffin.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about the premium folding e-bike company GoCycle. They've got some new funding from a familiar name in the industry.
Which one could it be?
There's also a new bill in Congress right now that seeks to encourage domestic production or assembly of e-bikes and bicycles.
Could do some good if it gets passed.
And then we're going to be talking about all the factors that influence a bike's hill climbing ability.
There's a lot of different ones. To find out what they are, stick around on the Weekly Recharge.
All right, starting off with this week's news, we'll jump into talk about the new legislation there. So this bill is called the U.S. Bicycle Production and Assembly Act. It was introduced by two representatives, one from California, one from Florida. The California representative was Mike Thompson, and the Florida representative was Vern Buchanan. If this bill becomes law, it would basically eliminate the Section 301 tariffs and the punitive tariffs from the Trump administration on bicycle components that are used in the assembly of bikes. And that, makes it a little bit easier to put bikes together here, which would in theory lead to more companies producing their bikes here. So this kind of follows on the heels of something that came up last year that was called the Domestic Bicycle Production Act, and that proposed a few things, including an elimination to tariffs, but also an e-bike production credit and a low-interest loan program for bike companies to get started. That unfortunately didn't really go anywhere. The representative who introduced that bill retired, and then it didn't get another sponsor after that. So, this new one seems pretty promising. I got a couple quotes here from the representatives that introduced it. Mike Thompson said, 97% of bikes purchased in the United States are made elsewhere. It's time we change that. The U.S. Bicycle Production and Assembly Act would give bike manufacturers the foothold they need to grow a thriving industry right here in the United States. And then the other representative said, our goal is simple: strengthen American manufacturing, support American workers, and ensure that U.S. bicycle companies can compete on a level playing field. Mm-hmm. Sounds pretty promising.
Yeah, definitely. In the past, we've expressed some, pessimism, I guess you could say, about actually getting bike manufacturing done here stateside. But we have said that, hey, if it is going to succeed, it needs something to help give it legs. And that's exactly what they're looking to do with this proposal, waiving some of the tariffs and helping with, some ways to get infrastructure set up and running. So it'll be interesting to see if it passes and what comes of it.
Definitely. I think it's missing a couple of the cool things about the previous bill, but if this is all that we get, it's still something, and can't really talk bad about that.
Something's always better than nothing. So.
Exactly.
In our next news story, so GoCycle has acquired new funding after a buy-in from Aventon's founder J.W. Zhang. So GoCycle is known for its high-end folding bikes. The company was founded by Richard Thorpe, who was a designer at McLaren, and it first launched in 2009. And if you look at these bikes, and the origin story of a McLaren designer seems pretty fitting. These things are very cool, very kind of futuristic looking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So recently the company was searching for new investors after restructuring at the beginning of 2024 and launching a crowdfunding campaign. So Aventon has an edge as one of the largest e-bike companies in North America. It also owns manufacturing plant in China. So following JW Zhang's buy-in, the company is keeping GoCycle's founder involved and has assembled a new European team so as to determine where to focus their sales and marketing efforts. The UK is expected to remain central, with other parts of Europe, the USA, and Asia being targeted as well. And the brand plans to reactivate fully in early 2026. So really happy to kind of see this headline. GoCycle is definitely one of the more unique products I've ever ridden. I thought it was actually really cool, really kind of futuristic bike. Plus it's a nice change of pace. A lot of the folders here in America are very heavy, and this one is a lot lighter weight, much more portable and easy to get around if you have to get on a bus or something like that. So I'm going to, I'll root for the best, and it'll be interesting to see what the Aventon influence kind of does there, if it does anything at all.
Yeah, I'm curious how separate it's going to be kept from Aventon, how much involvement there will be or overlap, but yeah, we'll find out later on.
Yeah, sure enough.
Moving on, so the Spanish motor company MAHLE is expanding into the eMTB market.
There you go.
With the new M40 mid-drive motor, and this thing looks really impressive. It's kind of out of the gate ranking up there with some of the big hitters in the eMTB space right now. So previously, MAHLE has been kind of known for their lightweight drive systems. We've seen a couple on the Le Mans e-bikes that we tested, both the Prologue and the Dutch. This one has 850 watts of peak power and a pretty impressive 105 newton meters of torque, which again kind of exceeds that Century Club that we've talked about.
That's right.
But it's still pretty lightweight. So the motor itself is 5.5 pounds or 2.5 kilograms. And then it has a couple of different battery options, the lighter of which is 11 pounds in total with the motor. So that makes it about 5.5 again with the battery there. And then the larger 800 watt hour option is advertised to have a range of up to 150 kilometers or 93 miles.
Interesting.
So pretty impressive there. There's also some other cool things here. So it uses a blend of sensors. So there's a speed, cadence, and a torque sensor. And then the speed sensor specifically was called out as being just super sensitive. It sort of scans every 3 centimeters that you move on the bike and then kind of makes adjustments accordingly. There's also a dynamic overrun feature that kind of reduces drag whenever you stop pedaling, and then a hill brake with an auto hold function that prevents you from rolling back if you run into something super steep. So, you know, the motor also pairs with a top tube integrated display with a 1.9 inch color screen, and you can get over the air updates there. So it seems like a pretty cool system. You know, Griffin, you spend a little bit more time on a mountain bike than I do, but what do you think about this?
To me, this is really just kind of fitting in with the trend. I think we've seen motor makers this year realize that people want more power. They want, you know, just more stuff they feel they can do on these types of bikes. And we're seeing another one in the Century Club here, 105 Newton meters of torque, big battery pack, bigger is better more often than not. It seems that's kind of the way the industry is shifting. So I'm glad to see MAHLE kind of join in the fray there because, you know, we've been pretty big fans of the motors that we've tested from them, usually
Definitely.
on higher end bikes in general. So yeah, really kind of curious to see what this one does.
Yeah, the previous experience, you know, they've been very smooth, very quiet, and obviously very light. So curious to see if this kind of follows suit.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in our final news story, so predominant DTC brand Canyon opened a brick and mortar experience center location in California. So some of the details here. Center is located in Peddler's Fork, and, you know,
Very appropriate,
for sure, which is about 30 miles north of LA and combines a bike shop and a cafe. It will be a service center and a place to demo some of their bikes. This is the first of many experience centers they plan to open. The next is scheduled in Dallas in early fall, but there are plans for Europe and the UK as well.
Cool.
Canyon has plans to open a whopping 300 service centers in the US by the end of the summer, with the goal of there being a location within 60 miles of every Canyon customer. Now, designed to bridge the gap between consumer needs and wants and the DTC model, a survey showed that 65% of consumers prefer to test bikes before buying, 60% want to be able to speak with an expert, and, you know, hey, we count just for whatever it's worth.
Keep that in mind. Yep.
And then 53% prefer the convenience of bike shop maintenance. So Saskia Schneider, I hope I'm saying that right, the interim GM of Canyon USA said, as a direct-to-consumer brand, we understand the need to lean heavily into how our customers use our bikes in their own communities. Peddler's Fork is a fantastic gateway for prime riding, a gathering place for cyclists of all types, and now a place where you can experience Canyon bikes in real life. So there will be a fleet of demo bikes that rotate through, you know, the experience centers, including road, gravel, mountain, and urban styles. So kind of an interesting headline here, you know. I'm going to watch it with a lot of curiosity and interest. To me, kind of looking at the marketplace, it's like, I feel like there is room for Amazon and there's room for Walmart, you know, like people like some of the savings and convenience that comes with ordering online. Some people just want to like go get it in person or like see it, hold it, feel it, touch it before they kind of commit to buying. So I definitely understand why people are asking for experience centers. Canyon for the longest time has been one of those like predominant players in the DTC space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quality above the, you know, the price tag that you're paying has always been like a huge part of their appeal. Really kind of curious to see if they can kind of bridge that gap as they move into a more brick and mortar experience, or, you know, are they better off staying in their lane in DTC? That possibility exists as well. Time will tell. We'll just kind of like see how it all unfolds and rolls out.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing it smart by starting out in big cities, and you know, we'll see where it goes from there. But boy, I just really hope we keep getting some Canyon bikes in. We've only had one, if I remember it correctly.
If our underdog, it was a good ride though. I really like that.
Cool,
So.
right on. Well, that does it for this week's news.
So next up is our gear and accessories section, where we kind of like show some of the things we've got here in the office. We had something just arrive. It's kind of large, not fully unboxed yet, so we're going to throw some pictures up on the screen. But today we're going to be talking about the Burley Hopper. And John, I'm actually looking forward to this one. Kind of a very promising little trailer and kid carrier all in one.
Multifunctional device here that you know, is a bike trailer, but also can be converted to a stroller sort of wagon setup. So the, you know, hitch arm that attaches to the bike then goes vertical, and you can attach a handle to that and push it around. So the cool thing about this is that you can do all of that without tools. You don't have to worry about that.
Love that.
Once you kind of have your kind of hitch set up, we'll get into this stuff more later on. But, you know, in the stroller wagon mode, it has 4 wheels. There's 2 sort of large ones that are 16 inches in diameter, and then 2 smaller sort of casters that actually fold up under when you're using it in the trailer mode, and then they deploy with like the press of a button when you want to convert it into the stroller or wagon setup.
Nice.
The hopper is made of recycled fabric, and it has a weather-resistant cover, and then it's, you know, really designed to haul both cargo and passengers, so it can carry up to 100 pounds, and it has a capacity of 115 liters. It always confuses me a little bit when we're talking about volume in liters.
There's like not a better way to express it, but at the same time, it feels like there should be a better way to express it. I know exactly what you mean. It's like, I don't know what 115 liters of
like square footage, I assume
my kids are, or something. Yeah,
for sure.
It's a funny system.
But yeah, it's got some interior pockets. You can add a few things to kind of expand its functionality. So there's storage dividers, and then there's a couple of kits that you can order parts from individually if you just get the base model, or you can get those sort of complete packages, you know, up front. So there's a seat and sunshade kit that come together for a kid-friendly experience, and then there's an adventure bundle that includes sort of wider, knobbier fat tires for the trailer mode, and as well as a dry bag for moving gear around. The base model starts at $599, so you know, not the least expensive thing out there, but definitely seems to be quality construction. And in our experience, testing a few Burley products in the past, they do a very good job. I mean, you use one fairly
I was going to say, I
regularly.
actually said on a show a few weeks back, like of all of the e-bike accessories that I use, the favorite one is the Burley trailer because it's the one it enables me to take my kids around. So yeah, it's definitely good products, good experiences in the past with them. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. You know, one thing to note about this one is that while you can push kids around in the stroller wagon mode, it is not able to carry kids in the trailer mode. So, you know, got to have a bike with a rack that you can put a child seat on.
For further context, that kid carrier that I'm referring to actually has like a top with like basically like a roll cage, so a little bit more safe, obviously there. Don't really need a roll cage when you're pushing around the park unless you're doing some very intense parking, I suppose. But yeah, absolutely, it's a good clarification to make. So, you know, with this, like, I think it's actually really promising. It's always nice to have something that can kind of condense multiple products you might have into one. I actually just like a week or two before I found out we were going to get one of these to test out and review, actually took a look at, or I bought a wagon on sale just to help get around the beach and stuff like more easily. And, you know, it's like stuff starts to add up. And it's like you have a bike trailer and a wagon and something to pull your kids around, kind of like a stroller. It's nice to condense that and have that all in one for sure. But, you know, with this too, we actually, so when Burley asked us if we wanted to take a look at it, and we said yes, you know, they asked which bikes we were going to be putting it on. We threw out a few different ideas that we wanted to test it on, like 3 different bikes. And they said for all of those, we'd need some sort of adapter because when it comes to the rear axle of a bike, different axles are used, different types of things that like may or may not be compatible with what they send you stock.
Sometimes depends on the motor as well.
Yeah, it just depends on the motor. You know, is it a hub motor that's using this special type of axle? Is it mid-drive? Maybe something more standard. But again, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So they actually had 2 of the 3 bikes. They had some sort of like through axle that we could swap out or an adapter.
Cool.
There was one on there for the Adventure 3 that we said we'd probably try it out on for our fat tire one.
Cool.
They said they don't have anything for that, but they did actually hook us up with the Robert Axle project. So they're sending us an adapter for that one. Now, what's really cool about this, we just want to give them a quick shout out. If you didn't know already, the Robert Axle project has this really helpful little like finder tool to see the type of adapter you would need for like a kid trailer or for a cargo trailer, whatever it is you're looking to haul with a bike. Super, super helpful resource because again, there are so many out there and it's kind of like the library and will just help you quickly match what you need. So again, shout out to the Robert Axle project for making life easier.
Oh, thanks for mentioning that. I actually didn't know that existed. I didn't remember typing that in my show notes, so I didn't know where you were going with that.
I got you, no worries.
Good stuff. Right on. All right, well, hey, let's keep things moving. All right, and now it's time to take a look at all the products we have kind of currently in testing and things going on behind the scenes here. Starting off with the Electra Townie Go. So that actually just showed up yesterday, and we have yet to assemble it. But that is a very cool model. It is one of 2 new bikes from Trek that actually includes a throttle.
Yep.
So I actually just finished up my review of the FX Plus 1S last week, and that kind of shares the throttle feature, so it's very cool that we got those bikes in back to back. This is, you know, the cruiser sort of style there.
Like, yeah, the same motor. I think this one has the same charging thing that the FX one has as well. It's kind of cool.
Easy Mag, yeah, very cool charger. But then, we had a few cool videos go live. Actually, a really big one here.
I was going to say that's correct. So by the time that this show airs, you should have access to our new hill test video where we break down and explain everything going on there. We are on to hill test 2.0. We're very excited about it. We were unfortunately forced off of Hellhole, but in a lot of ways that was kind of forcing us to do the hill test 2.0 we talked about doing for such a long time.
Yep.
And we were really excited with the new location we have at Devil's Backbone. So John, Justin, and I break that down, try to explain some of the differences there and how you can use that data and how we're building it out moving forward. So check out that video for sure if you're curious about the testing. And then we also did have one bike go live with the Veltric Nomad 2X.
That's right. That's been a very highly requested bike for the past, I would say, month or two. And it was very important that we actually published that Devil's Backbone video before the Nomad 2X review, because the Nomad 2X was sort of in that first pool of bikes that we had really no choice but to test at the new hill test location. So if we were just throwing that review out there into the blue without the Devil's Backbone introduction, that would have...
Didn't want to create confusion, so it was important we got that video up first. So if you've been a little light on the review front, well, now you know why. So
definitely. And then just a little bit more detail about the Nomad 2X. So has a lot of overlap with the standard Nomad 2 from Veltric. This is just a little bit more of an off-road friendly version of that because it has a full suspension with the rear shock there. So a little bit of geometry changes as well. But if you're interested in that, be sure you check out that video and make sure you're subscribed so you can keep up on all of our new content. It is a beautiful, wide world out there, and a lot of which you can see with an e-bike, so we like to dedicate a segment of the show to kind of take you around the country and sometimes places in the world with some cool e-bike trails and infrastructure. Where are we going today, Griffin?
Well, as you know, I'm going to be marching through all the 50 states, especially with the ones that I don't know very much about. This week I picked Indiana because, right now in the off hours when I'm not at work or not doing things with my family, those, that like 20 minutes a day of Griffin time. But lately I've been watching the NBA Finals. You got Oklahoma City and Indiana going toe to toe. So I wanted to go ahead and take a look at that state. And I found a cool rail trail there called the Cardinal Greenway in Indiana. So
cool.
Here's some information to know on this one. They're really nice, promising looking trail system here. So it spans 62 miles total, starts in Richmond near the Ohio border, and then runs northwest up through Muncie, Indiana. It's the longest rail trail of Indiana, again, even a part of the Great American Rail Trail System, which is a 3,700 mile route. So amongst that 61 miles, there is an 11-mile break partway through it because this is, again, converting some old rail trail lands, but there's some private land kind of bought up in the middle of it. So you can use, city surface streets to go through that 11-mile section there. But it is paved asphalt. It's very manageable. It's a flat grade for the most part with a 3% grade at its steepest. Not bad at all. No, and then it is allowed class 1 and 2 e-bikes on it and open from dawn to dusk. So a couple of things that you might see while on the trail. You pass by multiple rivers, Whitehole, Whitewater, and hopefully I'm going to say this one right, Mississinawa. I am not from Indiana, and I am not good with the local names. So
that sounds pretty close, yeah.
You'll also pass by some scenic farmland, some woodlands, and some small towns. Just tons of different types of trees along the way. I saw some maples, oaks, ashes, sycamores. Looks like great, just with the greenery draped over the trail in some of these photos. Just looks really awesome. Also looks really cool with the fall colors as well. Very pretty. Agreed. Type of scenic thing you want to be riding through. There are some ties in with the historic train depot, the Weiser Street Depot in Muncie, which also serves as the trail headquarters, it turns out. There's also just numerous arched steel bridges. I'm a sucker for bridges, and the old ones just look so cool to me. I don't know what's up with it. But,
no, totes, definitely.
And then, you have these nice stone mile markers every half mile or so along the route. In terms of some animals that you might find, the usual critters, squirrels, chipmunks, things like that. One resource I saw said it's also really great for birding. So I'm not a birder myself. Is that the term, birder?
I couldn't tell you. I'm
one who
not
birds.
One of whatever those things are.
One with the birds. I don't know, but apparently it's good for birding. So blue jays, songbirds, other things like that. And then one bit of advice though was oak mites are apparently a thing in the summer. So take some bug spray and then you should be okay. Huh. And then I also thought this was pretty cool. They do some events, involving the trail from time to time. One coming up in the fall is called Biketoberfest. Just looks like a great occasion to get out with some fellow cyclists and just enjoy the trail. So all in all, again, just looking at the photos here, John, just looks like a really awesome place to kind of experience. I even liked this one photo that actually looks like it intersects with a park that's got an old retired military looking plane there or something
That's
like that.
cool.
I want to know more about that one as well, but it looks really cool.
I gotta say, I grew up in Ohio. I spent some time in Indiana. Having been out here in the desert for so long, it always blows my mind when I see just how green it is back there. It is just vibrant and lush, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. And like you said, I think in the fall, that seems really appealing as well. But yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for taking us on a tour.
For sure. And like I said, I'm charging through all the different states, but hey, if you want me to shout out yours next, definitely drop us a line down in the comments. Let us know your local trail system, something worth checking out, and it might be highlighted next week. So for John and I, each week, our favorite part is the question in the comment section because our audience has just the best questions and comments, and it leads to a lot of really good stuff here on the show.
So what happens when you have the best audience.
Absolutely. So make sure to keep the comments coming here at YouTube or on our website or at questions@electricbikereport.com if you want to be featured next week and get an answer to your burning questions. Let's start things off, though, taking a look at a comment from Junior55 on last week's show who said, can you guys give some feedback on the Euphree Stellar Falcon versus the new Ride 1 Up Vorsa? They seem very similar. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, when answering this question or putting together our show notes was kind of trying to break down like, okay, what's too much information, what's not enough. So we're going to do a deep dive here, but then we'll kind of round things out with some recommendations at the end of it. We're going to go through, specs, components, performance, all that. Griffin, I'll give you the Vorsa. I'll talk about the Stellar Falcon.
Perfect.
Bottom line, both bikes are very similar. And we say this a lot in comparisons like this, but you really can't go wrong with either bike there. It just kind of comes down to some very small differences.
I was like, usually most of these comparisons, what we found is you've correctly honed in on the right things because they're like 90% the same, and then maybe like 10% difference in personality of the bike might more align with you. But again, like John said, rarely are you going wrong picking one or the other.
Definitely. So starting off with the similarities here, just to kind of illustrate the amount of overlap here, both bikes have 750 watt rear hub motors with both torque and cadence sensors. They have 8-speed drivetrains, suspension forks, fenders, cargo racks, integrated lights, adjustable stems, 27.5-inch wheels with knobby tires, 2 sizing options, full UL certified frames and batteries, and top speeds of 28 miles per hour. So breaking that down into their differences, though, on the motor side, the Stellar Falcon has a Bafang rear hub motor with a 1200 watt peak output and 90 newton meters of torque.
Meanwhile, the Vorsa has an AKM motor, a little bit higher peak at 1380 watts and 95 newton meters of torque.
Yep. On the drivetrain side, the Stellar Falcon has a Shimano Altus derailleur. There's a 50-tooth chainring there, and then 11 to 34-tooth cassette.
Meanwhile, the Vorsa has a Shimano Acera with a 42-tooth chainring and 11 to 32-tooth cassette.
On the brake side, the Falcon has the Tektro E350 system. That's 2-piston calipers with 180 millimeter front and rear rotors.
And the Vorsa uses Star Union, also 2-piston, but a 203 millimeter rear rotor and 180 front rotor. A little atypical setup. But
interesting, yeah. On the tire side, both are from Schwalbe. The Stellar Falcon has the Johnny Watts. Those are 27.5 by 2.8 with a brown sidewall.
And the Vorsa is also in the Schwalbe fam on this one, but the Smart Sam tire, 27.5 by 2.6 inch with black sidewall.
Yep. Suspension, the Stellar Falcon has only a suspension fork, and that is made by X-Show with 100 millimeters, and that is a coil fork that includes a lockout.
And then meanwhile, in the Vorsa, you get a Suntour X132 air fork with lockout and a Suntour NCX rocker-style suspension seat post.
Yep. And then just kind of wrapping up some extras here, sizing, fit, weight, capacity, that sort of thing. The Stellar Falcon weighs in at 71 pounds. It has a 350-pound payload capacity. The rear rack can hold up to 100 pounds. So it has both a high step and mid step frame. The mid step is sized for smaller riders from 5'2" to 6 foot, and then the high step goes from 5'4" to 6'2". That bike has a 200 lumen headlight, and it also includes an SP Connect phone mount, and then its starting price is $22.99.
And then for the Vorsa, it has weighed in at 73 pounds, has a slightly higher, well, actually not slightly, very higher, 440-pound weight capacity with an extendable rack up to 180 pounds. The step through is for riders from 5'1" to 5'11". Meanwhile, on the step over, you're looking at 5'5" to 6'4", 100 lux headlight on that one, and a price as of filming at $16.95.
So yeah, a lot of similarities, a lot of differences.
But also, I do want to point out, I think we actually had the suspension flip-flopped. I think the Vorsa was the one with the air fork and the rocker post. Or the Stellar Falcon was the one with that, and then the Falcon has the X-Show fork.
Oh, did I mislabel that? My bad.
It's all good. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. So we're good.
Keep it rolling. Good catch, yes. Moving on to the performance side of things, though, in the speed test, both bikes have the capability to switch between Class 2 and Class 3 modes, and the torque and cadence sensors, so we tested them with that combination. The Stellar Falcon has 4 pedal assist levels. There's sort of two settings with lower power levels and then sort of 2 higher powered ones. And that gives the curve of the power distribution there somewhat of an like exponential look. And it, well, actually, I'll let you talk about the Vorsa before I add that note. But.
Yeah, and then on the Vorsa, you're getting 5 assist levels, generally consistent increases in speed and power. It's just much more linear there, I'd say.
Yeah, which is kind of what we typically see. But, both of those in the Class 2 tests showed some sort of leveling off, which really isn't abnormal, but it is worth pointing out there. Moving on to the range test side of things, the Stellar Falcon went 26 and 68 miles.
And then on the Vorsa, it went between 43 and 92 miles. Great range there.
Yeah, crazy. On the hill test, the Stellar Falcon had a time of 1 minute and 6 on its throttle and 1 minute and 10 on pedal assist.
And then the throttle for the Vorsa was 1 minute 19, and the pedal assist was a speedy 1 minute and 4.
Kind of interesting that those flip-flopped.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
And then on the brake test side of things, pretty similar results here. The Stellar Falcon stopped in 21 feet and 9 inches.
And Vorsa a little longer at 22 feet 6 inches, but both within what we'd consider the safe range.
Absolutely. And then getting into the ride quality side, which is really the area where there, I think, are the most noticeable differences. The Stellar Falcon has a slightly sportier forward lean. Both bikes do have the adjustable stem, but just sort of the max position there, the sort of starting point with the Stellar Falcon was a little bit more forward leaning. The riding position, can be made a little bit more upright, but just something to keep in mind. So. The Falcon also has just a generally smoother ride because it has both the suspension fork and the suspension seat post there. It has slightly wider tires, which make it slightly more stable. And then just not really a critique on it, but we talked earlier in previous episodes about sort of the breakdown of torque sensors, and this one wasn't the most natural feeling. You kind of have to like get it started, and then it'll sort of read your effort.
Yeah.
But I think that the Vorsa had maybe a little bit more of a natural side, and then this was actually one of the first bikes that we tested with the ability to switch between torque and cadence sensors. So that was very cool, and the Vorsa absolutely followed in its footsteps.
So yeah, the Vorsa definitely followed in its footsteps in some regards. Again, it's slightly more of an upright ride, I would say. And then more powerful and responsive feel for sure. Like that was definitely a very powerful motor. It's nice too because you have the ability to program like the power output on that. There's some different settings you can kind of play with to really like dial in and make it your own. And then it is unique because it has that expandable cargo ability. So it comes with a 150 pound capable rack standard. You can add on an extension to up that to 180 pounds. It almost kind of makes it like a long tail rack, cargo rack almost in some regards. So very unique option that way.
And that can carry passengers, am I right?
So you can on the standard section of the rack, but not on the extended one. So you can do like one child carrier, but not two, if that makes sense. So
pretty uncommon on that style of bike.
Definitely.
So when it comes to recommendations, boiling everything down here, the Stellar Falcon, we would recommend that bike for those who really just appreciate that smoother ride with the suspension seat post and the fork, and those who plan to spend a little bit more, maybe more time off-roading, just because the air fork there is a little bit of a step up over the one that comes standard on the Vorsa. And then the Falcon is also better for those who prefer the cadence sensing mode, just because of that sort of less natural feeling torque sensor, and those who just appreciate maybe a slightly more premium finish, just with like a really nice glossy paint job and some nice trim features.
Definitely. And then more on the Vorsa side, we kind of see this one as best for those who want, some real adventuring capability, but who plan to ride mostly on pavement. And it's going to be best for those like, carrying lots of cargo and live in hilly areas and who just want more power and a more natural feeling ride. It's also going to be better for someone on a more strict budget. But again, it is a really cool and capable bike just because it can be kind of your light duty off-roader, your commuter, your kind of cargo machine. It is a really good and affordable option if you kind of want one uber versatile ride.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So that was, a lot of data and details there. So, if you've watched our show before and you've seen other comparisons that we've done, we've kind of approached things a little bit differently in places. Let us know down in the comments which sort of style you prefer, if you like these sort of deep dives, or if you want us to keep things a little bit on the shorter side. Yep. Let us know.
Deep end of the pool or shallow end? Which one should we swim in?
That's right. Moving on, though, to a question from Browser404 on the Event and Level 3 ST review on YouTube. That was one I did. So thanks for this review. I've been looking online for my first e-bike, and this seems to be a great choice. I do have some concerns around hills. Where I live, there are some very steep hills to go up and down. I'm told this bike can handle it, but it's hard to really tell. Is there a good way of finding out what the bike can handle exactly in terms of steep hills?
That is a great question with questions like these, we do our best to answer them. There are a lot of variables here at play, even like the term steep hills in and of itself. Everyone's got a very different definition of what that means. So I mean, it can be we're talking the grade, we're talking the length, like how does that boil down? A couple other things, without like, just some other factors that kind of go into a bike's climbing performance. Again,
there's a lot. Yeah.
It boils down to like motor power. I'm talking both peak watts and torque, the gearing ratio that you have available, the rider and the cargo weight, again, grade or length of the hill, and tire width, pressure, tread, things like that. So generally speaking, though, when it comes to the event in level 3, to work, it's going to work for most riders on most hills. Especially when pedaling. That's where it really shined its most. So when we, covered this review, for some context, levels, throttle, and pedal times were fairly average for the commuter category on a hill with grades that exceeded 12% at Hellhole. If you can find out any grade information on the hills in your area, that should give you some idea of how it will perform. But do keep in mind that our test rider, Justin, weighs about 190 pounds. So if you are above that, your results may vary. But if you're doubtful, you could always consider a bike with a more powerful 750 watt motor like the Adventure 3. That one conquers hills a little bit better, I would say, but again, level's pretty good for most folks. If you need a little extra power, carrying more stuff, maybe look at the Adventure 3 instead.
I feel like some extra context is helpful that, just in our previous hill test location, Hellhole, where it was a little bit more extreme, we only really had a few bikes that were very difficult to pedal uphill, and those were things like single speeds where the drivetrain or the gearing was just very limited and constraining.
100%, yeah.
For the most part, if you have an e-bike with a decent gearing range, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely. Good addition there. All right, then moving on. This next one comes to us from I'm Trying K221.
Awesome.
We are too,
Every day.
So this is from the Best for Seniors video on YouTube. They say, I live in Phoenix, Arizona, John's old stomping grounds.
Those are, yes.
So I like to ride through the park. Sometimes it's nice to get off the pavement onto a trail through the park. I'm a 67-year-old male, medium height, 5'11". Any suggestions?
Yeah, so my first thought when hearing that, reading that, is what park you were riding in. Having lived there, I'm familiar with the area, but there's a pretty big range in types of parks in that area. Something grassy like the Steele Indian School Park, or something a little bit rougher and rockier like South Mountain Park.
Told you he was a local.
I did have to look up the Steele Indian School Park, full disclosure. I lived in Mesa, not Phoenix. But anyway, just there is a variety of areas and different needs, I think, in e-bikes. So kind of knowing where you're riding would help us out a little bit more. But just assuming kind of the worst, when that would be like the rougher off-road areas, I would highly recommend the event in Adventure, which is in the list that we talked about in that video. So we mentioned the Adventure 2 there just because the Adventure 3 hadn't come out yet, but you really can't go wrong with either. The Adventure 2, I would say, is a little bit more powerful to start in its pedal assist levels, although they're both very powerful bikes. And then the Adventure 3 then has all the sort of new smart security features and motor tuning, that sort of thing. So just kind of determines what you prioritize there. But then of the other things on the list that we mentioned, the Discover 2 or the Rad Kick both might be decent options. Very comfortable, good suspension. You might want to swap out the tires though, again, kind of depending on where you're riding. But then alternatively, we did that deep dive just a couple questions ago between the Euphree Stellar Falcon and the Ride One Up Vorsa. Those both might be good options just because they're so flexible in where you can ride.
I was like, sometimes we call them SUV bike, but really just versatile for exactly what you're describing, for paved and for a little bit of light off-roading as well. So very good options to take a look at.
Absolutely, yeah. Let us know what you choose if you end up getting one too. But moving on to a question from at Still Life Productions 5017. This was on the Velotrix Summit 1 versus Specialized Turbo Tiro X 5.0 comparison video on YouTube. Why does one compare a full suspension bike with a hardtail?
Fair question. So for a lot of cases, it's not, when it comes to comparisons, it's not always like get something that is nearly identical, 90%, 95% overlap, and then break down the differences. Sometimes you really just want to look at a category and see like, the more affordable end of the spectrum and something more premium. What are you getting at either end? Because it's assumed that entry level stuff is worse. And like it's maybe not reaching the same heights, but in a lot of ways you can actually get really good quality stuff there. But then exploring the top end or the higher end, like, okay, but what does the extra dollar really get you and stuff like that? So,
and what do you value?
Exactly. I think I even had a line in that video, if I remember correctly. I said something to the effect of like, I'm not here to say which one is better, the bike that costs 2.5 times the other one is the better bike. So the Taro X in that case. But again, it was just exploring, like, if you want an SUV style, okay, what's something a little bit more entry level versus something more premium get you. So, even with all of that said, there are quite a few differences between the Summit 1 and the Turbo Tower X. Both bikes are well suited for commuting and off-roading. The Summit is set up for paved paths and roads a little bit better, but it's also very capable on dirt or gravel paths, fire roads, and maybe even smooth single track. Again, with its lack of full suspension, you're not going to be pushing the limits on it or anything like that. But if you're
plus the rear hub, yeah.
Yeah, plus the rear hub. But again, if you're not doing anything over the top, you're not looking to do single track mountain biking is, what I would just kind of consider that, then it's going to be great for you. And then, of course, with the Turbo Tower X, it can cover all of those areas and then some. Just kind of ups the ante in terms of what you can actually do with it. It is a capable single track ride, a little more on the XC side of things, not full enduro, just doesn't have the travel for that. But again, that's like a serviceable mountain bike and a serviceable commuter on that one as well, just a little bit nicer, more comfortable, and you'll pay for that privilege as well. So obviously, suspension is just going to be a huge deal there, but the Taro will also feel more nimble just because of the central weight of the mid-drive as well. It's another component of this, is the handling just kind of changes up a little bit more. The Summit one is good for what it is, I would say.
Sure, totally.
But a mid-drive is just always going to have certain advantages over a hub motor kind of in that handling department. So, and it just kind of boils down to what type of trails are you looking to do with your bike. So
I really like that question and also that comparison in general, just because we're kind of looking at the spirit of a bike and not necessarily like the cost or specific use cases.
Yeah, 100%. Right there with you. All right, so moving on to, I believe this is our last one, John. Yep.
This is.
All right,
indeed.
So this comes to us from Triax MMB on an episode a couple of weeks ago. It said, okay, this query is to EBR, but open input from others. I want to get my wife an e-bike, and she hasn't ridden one before. Others are allowed to weigh in, but we'll get you covered here.
Yep.
It's a little bit of a longer question, but bear with us. So, I have an Expedition as our kid carrier currently. I want to upgrade soon to either a front cargo or a mullet longtail setup. When we go on family rides, it's hard for her to keep up on her, it says NA bike, I think that's non-electric bike, to my preferred riding speed, so I have to slow it down currently. I like to be between 12 and 15 miles per hour on our typical rides that are 10 to 18 miles in each direction, typically on rail trails, but we do have hills around us when not on dedicated paths. I was considering a utility style bike for her, short deck cargo bike effectively, since that's a space I kind of understand, but I'm actually not sure what makes a good first e-bike for a woman who isn't really an avid cyclist. So the must-haves include class 1 or 2, only low step or step through design, at least 45 miles of range, and a medium level of assistance, but more is always better. Ideally has a built-in rear rack, open to add-on options though, front mounts or basket racks, must have a torque sensor, front lighting mounting, brake lights, and ideally has the following features, so wish list items here I suppose, but I'm willing to forego as needed. Not too heavy. I know this is hard to get with the prior requirement regarding range, thank you, that's more realistic. Yes. Turn signals, mid-drive motor, a throttle, hydraulic brakes, ability for a passenger to ride along, or an ability to tow a double kid trailer at 100-pound capacity. Apologies for the lengthy, detailed repost. Hey, nothing wrong with getting detailed, so let's try and help him out, John.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this question a lot. I will be upfront about the fact that I wasn't able to find any bikes that really checked all of those boxes, but in the 5, I think, recommendations that we have here, all of them check most, so we'll give you kind of some options and some budget ranges as well. So we're going to kind of start off on the affordable side and then get more premium as we go. So a couple things that we recently reviewed stood out, starting off with the Ertopia Carbon Joy. That one is kind of a really interesting hybrid between a utility style and a cruiser. So it's got a manageable weight. It's around 59 pounds. It's also made to be very comfortable, just with a big cushy saddle and those ergonomic handlebars. That one has integrated lights, a responsive torque sensor, and then this bike and really all the others here, we had impressive range test results with. This one we went as high as 75 miles of range using the lowest pedal assist setting, and it is not made for towing or carrying passengers, however. So moving on from that, the next recommendation would be maybe the Velotric Breeze 1. So that's another sort of lightweight cruiser style e-bike. Again, a few compromises here, but it's actually the lowest weight bike on the list here. So that weighs in right around 50 pounds. That one actually went up to 86 miles in a range test. That one has integrated brake lights, turn signals, a nice step-through frame, and some great color options. And then also just the ability to kind of be outfitted with accessories to sort of make it more functional there. But it does not have the passenger capacity there. The Abound SR from Aventon may be another good choice. So that one is on the heavier side. It's around 80 pounds. It's just got kind of a heavily reinforced frame for its cargo carrying capability there. But the weight does go down to about 70 pounds with the battery removed to help you kind of move it around a little bit easier. That one has passenger capacity. It's got a super dialed in pedal assist system like all of the new Aventon models. It has integrated lights and turn signals. And then we got up to 87 miles of range on that. That one also has a rear hub motor versus a mid-drive, which is true also with the Breeze one and the Carbon Joy. But then a couple of mid-drive options in the premium tier here, starting off with the Specialized Turbo Como. That one is advertised to weigh around 52 pounds. We actually had to send that back. We weren't able to grab a weight off of that for today's video here, so I can't verify that, but it should be in that neighborhood. That one, a super low step-through frame, easy to hop on and off, and just, Specialized makes some of the best motors out there. And then that one also doesn't have passenger capability, but you can add a front and rear cargo rack. And then depending on how premium you want to get with that option, you kind of have some base spec levels, but then you can go all the way up to like a long-lasting belt drive with an internal gear hub.
Always sweet.
And then finally, with the Turn Quick Haul Long D9. So that one, again, higher price tag in the premium tier, but it is a later weight option. Obviously has the cargo and passenger capability. That one weighs around 59 pounds. That one has a Bosch mid-drive system, also fantastic. And then we actually got just over 100 miles of range on that bike. Although I may not recommend, may not recommend that lowest setting for carrying cargo.
Eco was very gentle assistance, but yeah, in general, definitely can quick haul long, go long. Yes,
that's
there's a joke in there somewhere, but no.
We'll leave that to your imagination. Anyway,
this man had long range. Where are you going with that?
As far as turn bikes go, that brand probably has a lot of other options that would be good for you. We've had our hands on a few other models, the Vectron and the GSD, at some trade shows, but we haven't done full reviews here. So it's really kind of hard to recommend those at the same level. But we'll leave links in the video description. You can check out all of those bikes, and then while you're on Turn's website, you might consider looking around at some other choices there. But hopefully that gives you some.
Yeah, hopefully that's a good starting point with those 5 there. I mean, personally, I'd go for the Aventon Abound SR, but any of those 5 check most of your boxes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So again, that's going to do it for questions and comments of the week. If you would like to have your questions answered next time, just leave us a comment down below.
You know what time it is. It's time for Deals of the Week. Deals of the Week. I don't like being the only one singing, Griffin.
I clapped. I'm just throwing you off. I just want to see how much I can mess with you when we do this section.
Always.
Anyway, let's save the good people some money.
That's right. So nothing really too new out there that we could spot. So I'll just kind of highlight a few things that we've covered previously, but they're still awesome deals. Starting off at Ride One Up, the Prodigy V2 is $400 off, so it's just down to $2,095 for the chain drive version of the bike. If you want to go premium, there is a higher end model that's got the belt drive, and that also has an IGH, but that is not quite as good of a deal there. But both versions have the Brosa mid-drive. That's the company that makes Specialized motors, so it's good. And just all around a good trekking bike and kind of hybrid SUV style, kind of similar to things we talked about.
Do a little bit of everything type bike.
Yep.
And then another one that we have shouted out before, but it's still on clearance, looks like they're going to be closing it out, is the Rad Power Bikes Rad Expand 5. So this is not the plus one, which does have the suspension fork on it. This is the fully rigid one, but at $999, it is one of the best deals you're going to find on a 750 watt folding e-bike out there right now.
Spectacular.
To this date, it is still one of our favorite folding e-bikes for handling too, with that BMX style bar on it. So
nice and sturdy.
Yeah, definitely take a look at that one. That is listed as available until sold out. So get it before it's gone. But that's going to do it for Deals of the Week. So obviously, we could not do this show without you guys tuning in, sharing with friends, subscribing, all that stuff. So thank you for doing that sincerely. And as a way to give back, we like to highlight a rider from our audience each week. So this week, we have someone with the handle Captain Jim 97.
Yep, that's
Promotion
right.
from First Lieutenant Jim. But John, I'll let you take what Jim said.
I was going to say, it's time for Rider of the Week. But
no, we do that one time.
I know.
If we do it too many times, Adam's family, whoever owns the rights, that comes and sues us.
Don't want that to happen.
No.
Yeah. And you know, anyway, Captain Jim, we appreciate you. Thank you very much. He says, thanks guys, just got my new Adventure 3 in the matcha color this week after my Adventure 2 was stolen.
Nice.
Frowny face. I agree.
That's nice. Yeah.
The 2 was locked up along with my wife's 2 to the back of our RV. Both were covered, had no batteries in them, no seats, and no keys. The thief cut the extra thick cable lock, took my bike, and left my wife's bike alone. The thief did drop their wedding ring right where the bikes were. Karma! 3 exclamation points. Love the new features of the Adventure 3 e-bike. So sorry to hear about the bike that got stolen, but it sounds like the thief did get what was coming to them, at least somewhat.
That's super unfortunate. Sorry, yeah, again, to hear about that. And it just as a good like PSA, I suppose, just remember like there are serial numbers on bikes. You can actually like pull those off, register them with your local law enforcement. The odds of getting the bike back are very slim, but with the Adventure 3 there, you actually do have that ACU and the ability to like track the bikes down and stuff like that, set up geofencing, all that good stuff. So Jim, hopefully better luck this time around with the Adventure 3 and enjoy the bike. It's a really good time.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for you. And if you want to be highlighted in this segment, make sure you drop us a comment or email us at questions@electricbikereport.com. All right, guys, as always, thank you very much for tuning in every week. Just really want to make a special announcement here. I mean, not as special as it could be, but that's what I'm getting at. We are just 2,500 subscribers away from reaching the 100,000 mark.
So close.
Historically, that's about a month of time before we get there, but you could help us out get there faster by making sure you're subscribed to the channel. We would really appreciate it, and we're really excited to get that play button.
If you made it to the end of this video, we know you're a diehard, and we sincerely thank you for sticking around. So please, share with friends, family, anyone interested in e-bikes, and hopefully they'll subscribe and help us get to that goal a little bit sooner. If we can cut it down and not do it in a month, do it in a couple of weeks, man, we'd be thrilled. So thank you in advance. As a friendly reminder, if you also want to catch the audio version of this, we are on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast. You can listen to us there as well. And then, of course, write us and let us know what you'd like to cover in next week's show at questions@electricbikereport.com, or just leave us a comment down below. But that's going to do it for this week's Weekly Recharge. I'm Griffin.
And I'm John, and we'll catch you later.